Welcome everyone in Nigeria and the rest of the world. I am Gimba Umar and this is State of the Nation. We begin with the story of the freed children in Rigasa community in the Gabi local government area of Kaduna State, where the police authorities say that an Islamic school of sorts held persons in chains in conditions it says were inhuman. The police describes this facility where the persons were harbored in the area to recite the Quran and worship and pray to God as a torture house. Now, Africa is one of the regions most rife with contemporary slavery and child trafficking. Although this exploitation is often not called slavery, the conditions are. Children are often forced to do things against their will under threat of some form, or they get punished. The tradition of children has been reported in modern Nigeria and in Benin Republic. Let's analyze the Rigasa situation further. I'm now being joined by Barrister Julie Oko-Donley. She's the Director General of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, to analyze this. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on State of the Nation at this time. The police calls it a torture house. 300 children made to read the Holy Quran, pray and worship. Analyze this for us. What do you make of it?
Well, this is clearly a case of modern-day slavery. And, you know, these traffickers have come under different forms of guises, under religion and things like that, to carry out their evil acts. I mean, keeping over 300 underaged and adults in a situation like that, with hands and legs chained, being tortured, and the boys being sodomized, is nothing more than trafficking.
But it's certainly not the first time that this is happening, the situation we saw widely reported in Nigeria, also in neighboring Benin Republic. Are the security forces, the police taking the lead in this instance, aware of the magnitude of what we are dealing with in situations like this one?
Well, the truth is that this would have worked better if we had joint, you know, investigations and operations with at least 4 of the security agencies. NIS should have been brought in here because I hear there are children from other countries. So this is a case of smuggling of migrants. We should have also had NAPTIP because this is a big case of human trafficking, and perhaps the DSS in addition to the police. Well, the police has gone ahead and raided and they've rescued 300 children and adults. And right now they've been taken to the Ministry of Women Affairs. We have NAPTIP operatives right now profiling. And so far, my officers have confirmed that we have 190 victims in the shelter of the Women Affairs. And that according to some of the policemen there and some of the people working in the Ministry of Women Affairs, 110 have escaped. This is hearsay, and I've been trying to get the Commissioner of Police to hear from him, after which I'll make another statement. Until I hear from him, I don't want to believe that 110 have escaped, because if 110 have escaped, that means 110 potential witnesses to a crime as huge as this have slept through our hands.
Okay, a certain Ismail Muhammad is the staff of the Islamic facility, and these are some of his words. He said that those who don't attempt running away are not chained. Some were chained before, and after settling down, they were freed, painting a clear picture, I can imagine, of a correctional facility, obviously not registered. But do you think that a facility like that, set up to correct maybe some members of society, is it wrong to have that kind of facility?
That is not a correctional facility, but that is hell on earth, and the man should be jailed because that's where he belongs. Nobody has a right to keep children in a place such as that with very poor conditions, hygienic conditions, and chain human beings as animals, and then even be bold enough to say that he was rehabilitating. Who gave him the authority? That is not even a safe space to rehabilitate anyone, if any. You know, so I don't think he should even come out to say such annoying, you know, words to anyone at all.
But he says again that what they do is to read the Quran, pray.
That's what I'm telling you.
And also worship God.
Oh no, you can't be worshiping God and treating people like animals. Which God is that? I mean, they come under various guises like religion. They hide under the cover of religion to carry out those acts. Now, some of these boys said that they were sodomized. So the question we need to ask, there are so many questions that have been left unanswered. The question we need to ask is, were they sodomized by the victims, the fellow victims in the torture chambers where they were, or were they being sodomized by men who were coming from outside and paying money to have them as their sex slaves? These are questions. There's so many questions you need to ask.
What did you find out, since you say your people are profiling?
Investigations are still going on. The police have started investigations, and we're applying to the police to join us because we're a very interested party. We need to carry out joint investigations with the police. They are already investigating, and these are some of the questions we must answer. Now, this man is claiming that some parents brought these children to them.
Are you surprised at that?
How are we sure that those so-called parents did not kidnap these children? It is very possible that they were kidnapped from various communities. That's one. Number two, it is also possible that the parents also handed them over to some persons to look after them, and they ended up here. Now, the third question is, what is in it for this guy? It cannot be free. There's no free lunch. What is in it for this guy? Who are those behind this place?
Well, he has said it. What's in it for him is to pray and to worship.
No, not at all. We need to investigate this guy. There's more to it than meets the eye. We need to investigate this guy thoroughly and find out what's going on. Those boys that were sodomized, were they being paid? Was someone being paid to sodomize them?
What's going to happen? Because this is taking an international dimension, we understand, because they said the reports say that some of the children were brought from outside of Nigeria to that very facility. I'm wondering how you would have to deal with that in terms of finding a solution. When these people are being brought in, do they have a register with the government to try to see that such people are accounted for at every point in time?
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I said this should have been a joint investigation that also has members of the NIS involved, because this is clearly a case of those 3 or 4 children from other countries, smuggling of migrants into Nigeria. How were they brought in? Who brought them? And for what purpose were they brought? These are questions that need to be answered as well.
What must be done at the government level, especially for the state governments, do you think, such that these kinds of facilities, if you will, or the police calls them a torture house, these kinds of facilities are not encouraged?
Well, the truth is that in all of these states, the police have to ensure that they carry out surveillance to fish out. They need to get intelligence. They need to have people who they can keep like on their payroll, you know, that can feed them with information leading to the discovery of places like this. You know, rescue these children, seal up the premises, have joint operations with other relevant law enforcement agencies like NAPTIP and the NIS where necessary, and of course maybe the DSS as well. I mean, there are so many places like this, you know. You see all sorts of billboards, signboards talking about schools and all of that. They hide under the guise of schooling, and they torture children, they traffic children, they sodomize them, they rape them. They do all sorts of evil things to them. Now, we're not even sure of how many people have died in this facility, because it is possible that a number of people would have died in a facility such as this. So there's so much work to do, and I'm ready to get to the bottom of this one.
So if you will, are there any quick fixes that you could advise perhaps the Kaduna State government?
Well, right now, the children are in the facilities of the Ministry of Women Affairs, so of course the Kaduna State government is on top of the game. They would need to see to their counseling. NAPTIP counselors are on ground as well, but they need to see to proper feeding, proper medical care. Most of them need medical care. They may not manifest it outwardly, but inwardly, they need a lot of medical care, especially counseling. Psychosocial support is very important, and we need the Kaduna State government to assist, you know, in terms of provisions of Medicare, food, and things like that, to keep them, you know, to get them near sanity, and until they are able to reunite them with their family members.
I can imagine that the Kaduna State Governor, Nasser El-Rufai, is very, very interested in this kind of happenings. His son, Abubakar, haven't been, the 7-year-old, haven't been taken to a primary school, a public primary school in the state. But let's veer away from this a little, and let me ask you about the Nigerians who returned from South Africa, as a matter of fact. Are you having any role to play in that?
Well, you know, the South Africans, the Nigerians who returned from South Africans are mainly, as I heard, businessmen and women who had a kind of business doing before they were brought back. So the Diaspora Commission and Ministry of Foreign Affairs are directly handling the returnees. So far, we've not heard of any victims of trafficking amongst them. But if there are victims of trafficking, of course, we'll now take them to our shelters and then rehabilitate them accordingly.
That'll be a good place to let it rest. I most sincerely thank you so much indeed, Julia Okidonle, the DG of NAPTIP. Thank you for talking to us on this.
Thank you for having me.
And when we return on State of the Nation, we will focus on the metering challenge and the electricity theft in the country. Stay with us.